There was some funny stuff in that lawsuit, some heartbreaking stuff in that lawsuit. Felt to me like a research paper lawyers put together in the last 10 days, and now the argument's going to be made by people who have receipts who gather around. Was fascinating to see Brian Flores become a freedom fighter on the spot, right? Because he can...
Yeah. Like, I think the one thing about that lawsuit is I felt like it was 40 pages of you know how they do. Right? Like, it got to the end, and I want to know who in the office put that together for them. If they got some, like, aggrieved black dude whose job it is to be like, yo, man, how they do? Oh, I'm going to tell you how they do. And then just rattled off 40 pages worth of this is how they do. My first read when I saw this, because I don't think this case is a winner, like, at least in court a winner, was he must be mad. That thing with the Giants happened last week. He went and got the lawyers and got the suit and was ready to set fire to his whole career in a span of 1 week. And I have no choice other than to believe him when he says that he's just standing up for what's right. Because otherwise, this is stupid. Like, the only reason to do this in the way that he's doing it is because you think you got a principle to stand on.
Is he mad or hurt or both? Because the Belichick thing, that one, I read it and thought it was funny, and my heart broke for him because that must suck. He's being so respectful to Belichick. They're calling him Bill in the text, and what you get back is, oh, no, I know the other guy's got the job. Like, I just thought, maybe the anger is birthed by the hurt, but I thought this dude got hurt in here.
Well, I don't think there's any gripe to have with Bill Belichick about this. Like, Belichick's not the one who did this. He's just the one that happened to be trafficking in the information. Honestly, I felt really bad for Bill Belichick. He thought he was sending that text to one Brian who used to work for him, and instead he was sending it to the other Brian who worked for him. And it doesn't sound like Belichick had any idea that the Giants were trying to engage in this alleged ruse when it came to Flores, right? Like, imagine being Belichick and you get that reply that's like, yeah, I'm interviewing next week. And he's like, you're not interviewing next week. You already, rut-row, all bad, abort mission.
Could have been Brian Hoyer. I mean, imagine that.
He wishes it was Brian Hoyer so bad. Like, that's the most relatable Bill Belichick has ever been, is sending the text to the wrong person. And the text that you sent to the wrong person is the exact wrong text to send to that wrong person.
Can you help me please understand Stephen Ross, all of it? Allegedly progressive, but has a whole lot of stuff here, Bo. I cannot remember an owner buffooning his way through some of the things the Dolphins have buffooned themselves through in the last 15 years. It's just apocalypse after apocalypse.
Well, first thing, and maybe I missed it in the paperwork, but I did not recall seeing Flores say what is, I guess, kind of implicit in the Stephen Ross offer to get 100 G's for every game that you lose. He hired the black dude to lose. And this is a theme that the NFL has. I can list you some more. David Culley in Houston was hired to lose. Raheem Morris in Tampa Bay was probably hired to lose. And they messed up and had like one good season and nobody knew what to do, which is kind of similar to what I think is going on with Flores, where he was like, I ain't coming down here to lose. But the idea that an owner went to a coach and said, I want you to lose games could cost Stephen Ross his team. Like, I don't know if the other owners of the league can afford for them to show that dirt in their era of gambling, right? Like, the thing about gambling at the casino is nobody's trying to make sure the game is played straight harder than the casino, right? Like, they're the ones trying to prevent the fix. The NFL is now the casino in this regard. They have to make sure that the fix is not in. And Stephen Ross is basically saying, I want us to go out here and lose every game, and I will incentivize you to come out here and lose every game. And by the way, was then ultimately going to fire him for losing all those games, and then would say that the 100 G's per loss was the reason that they did it and you got paid handsomely for doing it. So yeah, this man might wind up losing his team. I also feel like he clearly did not do his background on Flores in hiring him. And I say that because he invites Flores on this yacht, allegedly, and says, hey, somebody's going to be here. And Flores is like, yo, I'm not here for this. And then Ross again set up something for him to wind up in the same room with Tom Brady. You would know when you hired this guy that he wasn't the dude to play around with this. If you really do all your due diligence and everything they claim they do, especially with players getting drafted and stuff like that, you wouldn't think that this is the guy to approach with this, which makes me think he was hiring a coach that he wanted to be a loser.
Do you find interesting at all that the flames climbing up into the Donald Sterling area that get around the commissioner will have nothing to do with the race stuff we're talking about? Nothing. It can only be the gambling stuff. None of this other stuff would climb around the commissioner. Only the $100,000 for purposely losing is the thing that I think puts in the conversation. Wait a minute. He might lose his team? Because I don't think he might lose his team. I think they're still protected there. These people know how to protect their own.
He has a measure of protection. I do think that's fair, but he did something they couldn't do. They didn't protect Jerry Richardson when it came down, and it was just like, oh, this is too much, right? You might hear shaving their legs at the office. Too far. Now you have to go. I'm not certain that Ross is like ultimately going to be protected on that front, but I do imagine John Gruden sitting around like, put it all out there. Let's hear it. Nobody wanted to get to the bottom of what's going on here quite like John Gruden.
So it ain't just
John
me.
Gruden, like I thought it was just me. I thought y'all said I was the one. Oh, okay. Let's see what else we got here. Let's go hear what John Elway has to say about this. And Elway is one of these dudes where he did hire Vance Joseph, and I don't think he fired Vance Joseph too early. Like it sounded like Joseph was overwhelmed in that job and they needed to move, although he went and hired somebody that was no better than Vance Joseph and gave that guy 4 years instead of the 2 years that he gave Vance Joseph. But the idea that John Elway didn't even bother to pretend, just showed up to that meeting 3 sheets to the wind with Flores, knowing damn well he wasn't going to give him the job, that's damning. And it's more damning because he had just hired Vance Joseph the last cycle because he was basically saying, nope, tried that. Not again.
So I know the timeline is the Dolphins allegedly wanted to tank. That plan didn't work out. So they hired this guy to be a loser, but then they tried to put him in the same room with Tom Brady. They tried to, but that doesn't match. Like
you're trying to win.
Saddling a coach with Tom Brady isn't a losing maneuver.
We're tanking for Burrow.
But if the losing plan in 2019 was so that we can get a quarterback and you have messed up the go get a quarterback plan, then let's go to plan B on getting a quarterback, which is try to get Tom Brady, and then went to plan C, which hilariously was plan A, draft Tua, right? This whole thing started on the Tank for Tua program, and then Tua wasn't what they thought it was. They actually eventually got what everybody thought they wanted, and then they didn't want it.
Right. They did offer, reportedly, they did offer the Bengals like 3 first-round picks, and the Bengals famously didn't even pick up the phone call or hung up right away because through their evaluation process, they realized Joe Burrow was a superior prospect. But I understand hiring him
But I think it's even past the evaluation. I think the evaluation indicated that he was a superior prospect, and also that dude was local. Like, Joe Burrow was the guy for that team to take. Like, he's not from the Cincinnati area, but Ohio's close enough.
Right. But is it fair to say he hired him to be a loser initially? But
yes.
Hiring him to be a loser for the entire time in Miami was certainly not in the plans if he's trying to get him that franchise quarterback, be it Joe Burrow or Tom Brady.
Correct. Yeah, no, but they definitely, the plan was for them to lose all the games to start. And then when he actually demonstrated that he could win 5 games with that collection of bums that they had, then they expected to actually win. Like that. You can't have that team they had in 2019 and think that this franchise is really going to be a winner in 2021 unless you think Brian Flores is an excellent coach. And I don't even know if that's true for what it's worth.
Bo, do you think other coaches and players will rally around Brian Flores here?
Maybe some players, not a coach. Not a single one.
Not a single coach?
No, the white folks don't care and the black folks don't have leverage. Like, I mean, the thought that when this happened with Flores, a whole lot of people, myself included, and probably some of y'all, the immediate thought was, dog, have you lost your mind? But then he said, yeah, I know I might not ever get a coaching job again. Okay, hey, man, long as you know. And so never forget what Gene Upshaw said about running the union, where people feel like the Players Association is not confrontational enough. And Upshaw is like, hey, man, I took on that fight. He's talking about, I guess, 1987 in particular. But he's like, I took on that fight. I went up that hill. And when I turned around, I was by myself, right? So his game was, I'm just going to try to make as much of this money as I possibly can. I don't know how many black coaches are going to be willing to put their careers on the line at this point for him. I just don't know. And if he's willing to take this fight on for himself, bless his heart. But if he thinks he's about to have a bunch of people behind him, I don't think that's going to go like he thinks.
That's interesting you say that, Bo, because you say that as presented, the case is a loser. And there isn't very much that resembles proof in what we read that you could prove racism in a court of law, that is a loser. But I thought that was just thrown out there to bring the others. I thought that there are all sorts of people out there who are going to have similar receipts and similar hurt, similar bitterness, and similar shame in those sham interviews that test your dignity. Bo, you know that button is the one that gets pressed. Dignity. Yes. Like, you're putting me in that interview and you're drunk, or you're putting me in that interview and this is a show when I just did what I did with the Dolphins. Like, that shit hurts.
Yeah, but there's a reason why you ain't heard from them cats by now, right? You know, like that's the thing. There's a reason why we haven't heard from them right now. So there may be some people that join him. I don't know. I would ostensibly hope ultimately that they would, but I just don't know how many people are willing to come out here and stand on it at this point. And it doesn't help also. One problem we got with the way we report about this and we talk about it is we can only talk about one black dude at a time, right? That's how we keep on talking about Eric Bieniemy over and over and over again. None of us have any idea if Eric Bieniemy actually has any business being a head coach, but that's the one guy we pull out. So who are the names that could come out and talk about this and that the public would view credibly and think that they ever had a chance at being a head coach in the first place? And this is where the NFL has rigged the game so well. They'll entertain the possibility at all of these guys ever getting jobs. And so somebody pops up and is like, yo, I ain't never got no job. And they're like, yeah, they was never going to give you a job. But it's like, who gets jobs? Great question. We don't actually have a system for the way that these things ultimately go. And so I don't know. Like, all of it, I look at it from top to bottom. I do know this, though. If somebody gets him to come around, it ain't going to be Brian Flores. It's going to be them fancy pants New York lawyers that he's got. And that's the part that I was talking to somebody about this yesterday. Colin Kaepernick got L.A. lawyers. He went and got Hollywood lawyers. This dude went and got New York lawyers, right? He's a New York prep school kid. I bet he's got a network and a phone book that will blow your mind. He got New York lawyers who aren't here to negotiate some deal. They here to fight.
Oh, I don't think this ends in a settlement, right? I think that what Flores just did was seismic enough to make me feel like there ain't an amount of money. There's not an amount of money. Now, maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe they settle because it goes years and gets caught in the court system. But once you go down this path where you're willing to torch you know how these football guys are, Bo. Like, he's torching everything he's ever cared about on the idea of, no, I can prove racism. I'm going to be able to prove this in a court.
Well, what I want to know is, what do his lawyers think of this? Because apparently they must think this is some sort of winner, or at the very least, they think they can get a shakedown out of it in the end. I don't know. But like I say, he didn't get a dude, what's my man's name in here, of Salino and Barnes, or whoever they are that be on these commercials up here.
888.
There we go. That's him. He didn't go to Houston and call Jim Adler the Texas Hammer. I don't remember who the TV lawyer is in Miami, but you know who it is. It's the guy you call. In fact, there is one guy in Miami he could have called that would have made me be like, oh, he ain't playing no games. What's my man's name? No, Jorge
Alex Hanna.
No, it's Jorge Baez. Is that
Rubenstein.
Anajar and Levine.
Yeah, the one. Yeah, I forgot about
Barry Cohen.
No, the one that represented Casey Anthony. Was that Jorge Baez?
I'm sorry that we're not.
411 Payne.
I'm not sorry. We've got so many of those in Miami, Bo.
I forgot. No, see, I
That's all
forgot
we
the
have.
city, and I forgot who I was talking to. But that's he's playing to win here. I suppose he was on CBS this morning doing this. I don't know what his wife thinks about this, right? Like, he is 40 years old and was like, I'm burning the whole thing down, even if it burns me in the process. And you got to respect it. There's no way around it. You got to respect it.
It is Jose Baez. And the thing you say, got to respect it, but you know what's going to happen now, right? Goalposts are going to move. People are going to argue what is and isn't racist. They're going to put on trial the plantation mentality of sports is where they're headed with this research paper that they're saying is a lawsuit. Bo, this was too quick. Like, there's nothing in there yet. They have to rely on others in order to make this a historic thing. You and I can believe in the principle and say it's courageous, but for it to echo and him to be a pioneer, he's got to get results with this, Bo. Yeah. It can't just be that he makes a loud noise at a time that, we want to talk about this stuff.
I disagree with that. I think that a loud noise can do it. I just don't know how loud the noise has to be to resonate for long enough in the course of this. But Colin Kaepernick ultimately was loud noise. And I do think that there was a resonant and impactful play out to the way all this goes. And maybe the thing with Flores was, as I think about it, when the Dolphins fired him, he was always prepared for a lawsuit. And then came this crazy thing with the Giants. And I think the most insulting thing to him had to be that they were telling him, well, what do you think about hiring Brian Daboll as your offensive coordinator? I think that he would be great to work with you. I hear he doesn't like working with McDermott. And then he looks up and Brian Daboll actually got the job. Keeping in mind that he has worked with Brian Daboll and might not think he's any good.
Bo, here's an idea that's unlikely to happen. But how about Bill Belichick staying with his former coach and friend, Brian Flores? How about that?
After he betrayed Bill Belichick and put his business in the street?
Yep.
Because my thing is this. I don't think he betrayed Belichick. Like, if I were Belichick, I wouldn't find this as something that I could not forgive, right? Like, how dare you do such a thing? But don't nobody want to work with the dude that's out here screen capping?
So your takeaway from that text exchange was that they were friends?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it would be the right thing to do. I mean, Belichick should stand with Brian Flores.
With his friend,
Make
Brian
an impact.
Flores. That
Yes,
didn't
his
seem like a
former
particularly close relationship, given the text that we've seen.
What if they were
Well, to be fair, at that point, what else is there for Bill Belichick to say? I applaud Bill Belichick for even replying.
Right.
But he was like, are you texting Brian Flores or Brian Daboll? That might have been the last text you. Bill Belichick has left the chat.
No, I'm telling you that if I'm Belichick and I realize my mistake, I call somebody younger than me over and say, how do I put it so that all that Flores gets back from me is eternal bubbles? That he doesn't know that I'm about to respond, but I haven't. And so that I can make the excuse of, well, I thought I sent it, but I never sent it or whatever.
Dude.
I was surprised how honest he was. I was.
Such an easy mistake to make. Like, I don't know about you guys, but when I make the mistake of accidentally sending the text message to the wrong person, I'd be so heated that I put in the name of the person that I'm talking about in the send part. And then next thing you know, it's like, oh no, I was talking about you, not to. Oh, rut-row. Yeah, this one was just the two Bryans came up at the top. And he just hit the wrong one.
Happened to me in 8th grade, Bomani.
Wow, they had cell phones when you were in 8th grade.
Yeah,
huh?
that's what we marveled at.
She texted in 8th grade.
She's been texting since 8th grade. Yes, we've been marveling at that. Are there other things?
Yeah.
Are there other things in the paperwork that were interesting to you?
Yeah, not really. I mean, the paperwork, the mere act is what was interesting. The paperwork itself is just kind of there, like when you really think about it. But the mere fact that this was something that he entertained doing just blows my mind. Like, they had me on SportsCenter. You know, I love doing SportsCenter at times like these because I like to hit him with Uncle Charlie, you know, throw him that deuce. And they're like, well, you know, what's your thought? And I'm like, he must be mad. Like, that's all I had on that. He is mad.
I know you like throwing the change up because you are coming out here and saying, well, I don't know if maybe Brian Flores wasn't a good coach. Maybe he was a mean man from the Patriot way. And maybe this isn't the greatest messenger for whatever the reasons are. The thing you can get behind, though, is the cause. Being so mad and tired, Bomani, that you're like, I'll set fire to everything here in order to try and be a pioneer here. The coaching Kaepernick.
Yeah. I mean, again, a guy who still had a bright future. Like, he's 40 years old. There is a lot left for him to potentially do. But also what I imagine made him mad too, and, you know, people have been hearing the winds of this, all that Patriot Way stuff and everything else. Okay, cool. What's the dude name down there in Houston? Caserio, the dude that was in New England, that's the general manager.
The pastor, the former pastor, the former team pastor.
Jack Easterby.
Oh, no, that's someone Jack else. Easterby. I'm sorry, my bad.
Yeah, that's Jack Easterby.
Nick Caserio.
Caserio's the general manager who went to college with Josh McDaniels. Like, it's all tied up in that stuff. But anyway, for all that talk about wanting to get the Patriot Way going down there, and they'd had O'Brien there before and everything else, the kooky owner apparently wants to hire Josh McCown, whom everyone loves, but has never been a head coach. And they want Flores to go down there? You know, like imagine that for you. So the Giants, your hometown team, do not forget, run the sham on you. People who supposedly know you seem to have wanted you to engage in a sham down there after their last hire was already a sham. You did a fairly decent job in Miami where the owner wanted you to lose on purpose and then get you out of here ultimately for not winning enough. I can't blame him for looking around and being like, yo, what's going on here? Denver, the guy shows up and clearly doesn't even want to hire you.
Bo, you think Brady's pissed today?
No, actually.
Really?
Because I don't think he cares. I think that he probably would have been cool just to retire and not tell anybody. Like, he's not the victory lap guy. So Mike Krzyzewski's going through his victory lap this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people are like, oh, man, he must hate this. You must not know Mike Krzyzewski. Mike Krzyzewski's loving every minute of this. Roy Williams woke up one day and quit. Dean Smith woke up one day and quit, right? It just a quick move. Nobody thought about it again. Just kept it going. I think Brady's more in line with those guys.
What changes here, Bo? What has to change? What can change? What won't change?
White people. Like, I just don't know why people try to make this far more complex than it is. What's the problem? White people. Now, not every single individual white person. No. But in the macro and the aggregate, who are the ones that are making these decisions? White people. Who are the ones that won't change their decision making? White people. Who are the ones that only do anything in a different way when it comes to these matters at the threat of litigation? White people. So I need to ask y'all, what is it that can change? Y'all the ones that know these white people. Y'all the ones that be hanging out with these white people. Y'all the ones that know the ones that pretend to be such good people and then make all the same decisions as everybody else. So I don't have that answer there. What I do know is this, and this is, I don't know how exactly, like, I'm not, okay, this is how it goes. People in this country, I would say the median American, black, white, whatever, right, believes that black people are not as intelligent as white people, period, right? That's part of why people like get so hopped up about me, because they just can't believe that a black person like me actually exists in the state of nature. Come on, man. Think about this, Dan. Mina Kimes is probably every bit as bright as I am, and people don't act like they met a unicorn when they meet her in the way that they act like they met a unicorn when they met me. It's because they just don't think black people are that smart. Okay. If you're walking in the door with the initial presumption that black people just aren't that smart, I don't know how we're going to change your mind and make you think that the black person should wind up being the coach. You want the analog? Me and Dominique were talking about this last week. So Eric Weddle just came back out of retirement to play for the Rams. You may not know this, but in 2005, it may have been the Emerald Bowl or something. I don't know. But Eric Weddle was a junior at Utah playing corner, and they played against Georgia Tech. And he held Calvin Johnson to 2 catches for 19 yards in a bowl game. Eric Weddle was drafted to play safety. That's all I'm saying, because people don't believe that a white person is capable of doing that. And there was not going to be anything that he could show and achieve on the field as a cornerback that was going to make those white people believe that he could play corner. Dominique talks about us a dude named Dustin Fox who played for Ohio State. He was a corner at Ohio State. And Dominique, I was like, when he got drafted, like, was there a player that went before you that made you be like, okay, this is bullshit? And he said, yeah, it was Dustin Fox. And I was like, oh, okay, because the white dude got drafted ahead of you. But then Fox got wind of it. Dustin Fox got wind of it. It was like, don't worry, Dominique, they drafted me to play corner. Dustin Fox said that the only people who believed that he could play corner, they play safety is what he said. He said the only people that believed that he could play corner were 3 dudes, and I can't remember who the third was, but the other 2 were Mike Tomlin and Mel Tucker. Because white people just don't believe that a white person can be fast. They do the same thing to their own in a different place. And so as long as white people just believe that black people ain't that smart, I just don't know how you're going to get the owner to feel good. You're going to otherwise wind up with people doing their Mike Mayock impressions. I don't know. It's just something in my gut. Remember he said that about Teddy Bridgewater and why he'd take Johnny Manziel or why he'd take Blaine Gabbert, I think it was, over Cam Newton. I don't know. It's just something in my gut. It's that white in your gut. Like when you start hearing that in those situations, it's that white in your gut. So how do we get that white out? I don't know.
Isn't that what happened with Polian and Lamar Jackson?
Yeah, it's a difficult concept for people to, quarterback is a great place for it, right? Like a great place to have that discussion. They just don't think that we are able to do these things. And so somebody gonna have to, there is a great line in a song called Trial Time where my man say, get you 12 white folks and take that shit to trial. Problem is you're getting 12 white folks, but they're gonna have to take it to trial. Otherwise it ain't going.
One of the things they're taking to trial is the loaded word plantation when it comes to sports.
They shouldn't have put that in there. They should not have put that in there. I mean, and you know who does that, honestly? White people who don't understand that you got to know how to talk to white people, right? So, like, I'm working on this TV show that I'm doing for another network, right? And one thing I've had to explain to the writers is we ain't going to come out here really calling no individual person a racist. And Dan, you can even think about this in this over a decade that you've known me. You've heard me talk about things in general, but you'll have a hard time thinking about times that I pointed at this individual person being like, you are a racist. Because once you do that, the wheels come off. Like once you do that, white people turn this not into a discussion of whatever else you were talking about, but some litigation. Like you said, the goalpost movement, what is and is not racist. And well, he's just like everybody else, like everything that plays out. Once you start talking about plantations and slavery in front of white people, the guilt pop up and everything shuts down, right? So that's inflammatory and maybe it gets some measure of attention, but it doesn't make white people stop and take pause and reevaluate everything. It makes them push everything away. Even a lot of black people, you don't compare anything to slavery because they can't conceptualize the idea of slavery or plantations as an economic system rather than a judgment and indictment of the people who are actually running the plantation. So that's one of those where, yeah, you might be right, but I don't know how far right is going to get you here.
Oh, but you say New York lawyers, though, and I don't know the sensibilities of this group of lawyers. I do know that they had someone either hurt or angry who thought he had proof of racism, and they've constructed in very short order, Bomani, on the first day of Black History Month, the loud noise that you need to see if, okay, how many other whistleblowers are we, how do we turn this into a movement? But they did it with a research paper that passes for a lawsuit that a bunch of lawyers put together in 57 days that does not prove that Brian Flores is the victim of racism, even though we all know that Brian Flores, the system, is going to be racist against people like Brian Flores, but proving it is another thing entirely.
Yeah, I think the next filing is what's going to be important because the question is going to come down to, can you get this to discovery? Right? Like in the end, if they can get this to discovery, then they're cooking with gas. That's what John Gruden's playing for over there in his suit. It's like, can we get this to discovery? At which point they will pay him every dime for reasons that Brian Flores is helping to spell out. I don't feel like I see enough that will ultimately get to discovery. And I'm not sure that this is going to be the thing that makes everybody else jump up because these are the lawyers that represented the Harvey Weinstein victims. So perhaps they believe that the playbook that worked over there is going to work over here, but they're going to find out that the labor force in football is far more docile than it is over there where they were, you know, and that was a sweeping national movement that was going on, you know. What I have to say in fairness to the NFL, though, and this is where I don't want to say they get a bad rap in times like these, but there's something to be said for the sports media industry, which has very many of the same exact problems as the NFL when it comes to diversity and hiring. And then the high horsing that goes on over here, but ain't nobody want to talk about what's going on at their own jobs when it comes to these matters. That's one that gets a little tricky for me on this.
Anything at the Super Bowl, not the player's responsibility, but black fists, anything that suggests that a movement comes behind this and not just asking a whole lot of other black people to maybe risk their careers on something that they don't want to.
Well, I imagine them lawyers going to be down there acting bad. Like this is your time, right? Get out there and acting bad. And I don't know if there's like a Black Coaches Association or a listserv or whatever it is, you know, to get this going. What I want to know is this. I have a problem that I have with this process, and you hear some whispers about it, but nobody really says it out loud. John Wooten and the Fritz Pollard Alliance have too much power in this process. And I say this as somebody who has never talked to John Wooten and who has never talked to anybody associated with that alliance. But I know the game. I know how things work. And basically, white folks need one person to talk to in times like these, right? They don't want to hear from all of us. They like assign one dude to come in here and tell us everything that you need. And the Fritz Pollard Alliance became the organization and John Wooten became the guy. And so when it's like, yo, we need to go hire some black coaches, they go get a list from him. Never mind the fact that they should know all the same people he knows, right? But they go and they get a list from him. No one person should be the gatekeeper in that way to ultimately decide who gets these jobs. I imagine there's some black people that you don't know of and you ain't heard about who got some beef with John Wooten and they never wind up with their names on that list. It's possible that Eric Bieniemy don't get along with John Wooten and he doesn't wind up getting in those places, right? I bring that up to say Brian Flores seems to have skipped the Fritz Pollard alliance altogether to go straight to the lawyers, which to me speaks to an impotence of that organization when it comes to resolving the claims that black coaches have, right? I don't know this for fact, but why did Flores not go talk to that guy and instead went to the white lawyers to make this happen? I can only reasonably assume he had no faith in that guy, and that is something that I think that people need to explore.
But he might also be behaving emotionally, right? He might be making emotional decisions because he was smear campaigned. Bomani, that was ugly what happened with the Dolphins.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is when I want to be emotional about something that white people are tripping, I call black people. I don't call you. I think I did that one time and it almost ruined our relationship. That's the thing. So there's definitely an emotional component in this, but it is damning for that alliance. The idea that Brian Flores would not go to them in a time like this. But the reason is y'all are the NFL. And so when you talk about who's going to make the NFL change, we've allowed the NFL to get away with having its own in-house black people network. And then when things don't go right and John Wooten just shakes his head, quit your job. Something, right?
Bo, can the Dolphins today announce that Jim Harbaugh is going to be their next head coach? Today.
I don't know who that's. Forgot they don't have a coach yet. Like, when can they announce a coach?
Exactly.
This is where it gets really tricky. When can they announce the coach? Who can the coach be ultimately that they do, in fact, announce? Are they going to go hire that Patrick Graham dude, the defensive coordinator for the Giants?
I'm looking at them getting hit by Flores and Gruden, and it's kind of amazing, though. Like, you can't, like, the idea, you've been wanting these guys to get deposed for how long? Are we going to ever see anybody deposed?
They'll pay any amount of money in the world to not get deposed. Like, something I think that we need to talk about when it relates to the NFL owners and what's changed in whatever the time period is. So look at Jim Irsay, right? Jim Irsay is now a billionaire. Jim Irsay inherited this team from his father. His father was not a billionaire. Like, his father was not he wasn't a poor man, but NFL team owners were not filthy rich before. They were not the equivalent relative to inflation of the time to the billionaires that own teams now. They were rich enough to have power, but not so rich that they were impervious to what the world thought. These guys are different. These guys have never had to care about any of this stuff. And so when it comes down to like, oh man, we might get some depositions, the hell we will, them checks gonna get cut. Like, think about this. There were depositions in the Kaepernick case and we barely heard about any of them. Barely.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones is something you should all be listening to. Also, Bo, what do you want to tell people about your next project? Is there any information to share?
My next project is a television show on HBO called Game Theory. We will be telling you very soon when the premiere date is going to be. We have already started. We got writers on board. We've already started taping stuff. We're going to do our first test shoot this week. And this is probably the best way I can describe it, and it works with this audience. If you have ever listened to my podcast, we are basically trying to figure out how to take that vibe and put it on television. Right. So we're going to do kind of some of the deeper, like, smarter stuff, for lack of a better term, but we're going to do those things the way that I typically do those things. Right. We're going to find ways, like, if you have wanted to see me do something that was built around me, that is what this is going to be. This ain't going to be a matter of, oh man, we got this show and then we plug this person in, or man, we going to squeeze them with a co-host, figure out how to make it work. No. For the first time, they like, this is you. Let's do it. Let's make it happen. I just got back from a suit fitting, Dan, with a man that when I walked in, he got pictures of Denzel Washington from American Gangster because he made the suits for that, and a picture of Eddie Murphy wearing a $17,000 suit in a movie that didn't even get used in the scene. Like, I had been so happy with my tailor that I had before. These people be shitting on my man's work every day, dog. It's a whole nother world, man. It's a whole nother world.
Bo, if you need anything from me, just let me know. I'll be there for you, okay?
Oh, one thing to always remember, Stugotz.
What happened?
I always know there is something that you can do for me. It'll just be between me and you. Like, whatever it is that I need to call you in to do,
Right.
don't nobody else need to know about that.
All right. Our secret.
But I know you got it.
Yeah, I got you.
Excited to see what Bo cooks up. Thank you, Bomani. Always good seeing you.
All right, man. You guys be good.
See you, Bo.